I am Lin Bugging. I work as a programmer at an internet company. Our office building is called Brilliant Building. It's a Class A office building in the city center. The location and rent are quite brilliant too. Our company is on the 11th floor. Overtime is the norm for me. I usually don't leave until after midnight. That night, it was just after midnight. I entered the elevator alone. Pressed 1. Then, out of habit, I leaned against the corner, staring blankly at the constantly changing red numbers. 11th floor, 10th floor, 9th floor. Everything was normal, but starting from the 9th floor, the feeling of a smooth descent in the elevator disappeared. It was replaced by an extremely subtle, but definitely noticeable tremor, as if something outside was using something to rub against the elevator's exterior. Then the lights flickered. They didn't go out completely. It was just that kind of flicker caused by unstable voltage. The light in the entire elevator car dimmed by a few shades. My heart skipped a beat, but I didn't pay much attention to it. It's an old building, so aging circuits are normal. 8th floor, 7th floor, 6th floor. The scraping sound became clearer and clearer, and it was mixed with a very strange sound, like many people whispering in extremely low voices, or like the sound of wind. Could there be wind in an elevator shaft? That's utterly ridiculous. 5, 4, 3, 2. When the number jumped to 2, the elevator jolted violently and stopped. But it didn't stop steadily. Instead, it began to slowly creep upwards. I was completely stunned. I quickly pressed the open door button and the alarm bell. No use. There was no reaction at all. The numbers on the panel started jumping wildly. 3, 5, 8. Finally, as if it had run out of energy, it stopped with a ding. The number 13 was clearly displayed on the panel, but there is no 13th floor in our building at all. When I joined the company, Her had half-jokingly mentioned that the boss was quite superstitious. He considered 13 unlucky. So, in our Hui Huang building after the 12th floor, it goes directly to the 14th floor. And indeed, there was number 13 button on the elevator panel. But now it was right there. Had I lost my memory? Or was I blind? An unspeakable terror instantly gripped my heart. I stared fixedly at the elevator door. I could almost hear the sound of my blood rushing to my brain. The scraping and crying sounds from outside the door became incredibly clear at this moment. It wasn't just one person crying. It was a group of people, all women's voices, suppressed, desperate, as if their mouths were covered. They could only let out muffled wails of sorrow from their throats. The scraping sound also changed. It was like many people frantically scratching at a door with their fingernails, or a wall. Ding! The elevator door opened. Outside the door was not a floor corridor, but a wall, a dark gray concrete wall, completely sealed off the entire exit. The wall was covered with crisscrossing black scratches, like marks left by something scratching it for decades. Those crying and scraping sounds were coming from behind this wall. My legs turned to jelly then. I pressed myself against the innermost corner of the elevator, forgetting even to breathe. Just when I thought I was going to die of fright, an extremely faint voice sounded right next to my ear. It was a young woman's voice. She sighed faintly and said, "Why aren't you coming up yet? It's almost your turn." The elevator door slammed shut with a bang. Then it began to plummet rapidly. Finally, it stopped steadily on the first floor. As soon as it opened, I practically tumbled out. The old security guard on duty was startled by me. He asked me what was wrong. I couldn't say a word. Pointing at the elevator, I finally managed to stammer out 2 words. "Ghost." The next day, I told what happened last night to my department's best buddy, Wang Fatty. After hearing it, he almost spat his coffee in my face. "Lindsay, you've been working so much overtime you're hallucinating, haven't you? 13th floor and a female ghost? Why don't you say you met Nia Xiaoqian?" "It's true. That crying. That damn creepy wall." I got anxious. All right. Yeah, sure," he said dismissively. "It must have been an elevator malfunction. Old buildings are all like this." As for the crying, it was probably the wind from some floor. The finance company on the 14th floor curses all day long. It's even worse than ghosts crying. I knew he didn't believe me. No one would believe it, but I was certain it was absolutely not a hallucination. In the following days, I'd rather climb the stairs to the 11th floor than take that elevator. My colleagues all laughed and said I was crazy. I couldn't be bothered to explain. If someone else told me such strange things, I wouldn't believe it either. The girl said, "It's almost your turn." What did she mean by that? A week later, on Friday, it was another night of overtime. The project was going live. Also instantly sank. The water surface returned to calm, as if everything that had just happened was merely an illusion. After an unknown period, Master Huang climbed out of the broken hole. He was soaked to the bone, and his face was paler than a corpse in the water. In his hand, he tightly clutched the bronze gong. The first thing he did was put his index finger to his lips, signaling me to be silent. We returned to shore in silence. Once ashore, the first thing Master Huang did was to have me cut my fingertip with a knife and drip the blood into a small porcelain bowl. Then, he used that blood to draw a strange symbol on the forehead of each of the 3 sacrifices. After doing all this, he pushed the 3 sacrifices into the water. He then threw all the various ritualistic tools, along with the bronze gong, into the center of the reservoir. After he finished all of this, he looked as if all the energy had been drained from him. He slumped to the ground. I asked him what was truly down there. He looked at the water surface. It was a long time before he spoke. He said that temple was no longer a temple. It was a nest. For all these years, all the resentment and lost souls from beneath the water gathered there. They had already merged with that temple. He said that what he saw after going down was not the inside of the temple at all, but a massive banquet hall constructed from human bones and silt. Countless guests sat inside, enjoying their grand feast. Those so-called dishes were the vital essence of us living people. He said that the Dragon King was actually a core formed by the convergence of all these resentments. It had no fixed form. It could appear as whatever any of us desired most in our hearts. It entertained us with illusions. The entire department stayed until almost midnight. Wang Fatty patted me. "Let's go, Lindsay, let's go down together. I'll give you a ride part of the way." After the last lesson, I absolutely had to wait for someone to leave with. We entered another elevator. There are 4 elevators in the entire building. I thought it couldn't be that unlucky, could it? However, what you fear is what happens. Halfway down, there was that familiar slight tremor again. The lights flickered. Wang Fatty felt it too. He dropped his playful grin and frowned. "Hey, this elevator really needs to be fixed." I didn't speak. All the hairs on my body stood up. The number jumped to 3. The elevator stopped again, then slowly moved upwards. Wang Fatty's expression also changed. "Holy crap, what's going on?" He started frantically pressing the open door button, and the alarm bell. Still no reaction. I stared intently at the digital panel, watching helplessly as it skipped our 11th floor, skipped the 12th floor, and finally stopped steadily on the 13th floor. Wang Fatty stared with wide, clear eyes. He clearly remembered what I had told him earlier. It was deathly silent in the elevator, but we both heard the chorus of women's cries from outside the door, and the rustling sound of fingernails scratching the wall. Wang Fatty was so scared his face turned white. He shrank back behind me. "Holy crap, it's real." Ding. The door opened. Outside was still that seamlessly sealed concrete wall. The wall was covered with black scratches. This time, I wasn't as panicked as before. Instead, I felt a hint of calmness. I stared at that wall, as if I wanted to see through it. The crying and scraping sounds stopped abruptly. A voice. It was that young woman's voice again. But this time it wasn't right next to my ear. Came from the other side of the wall, with a hollow echo. "So, the partner's here, huh?" Another slightly softer voice sounded. "Great. Finally, we can change shifts. Yeah, it's time to go down. It's finally our turn to go down." A cacophony of women's voices rang out. They were discussing. They were cheering, like a group of workers who had finally waited for their shift to end. Every word they said clearly reached the ears of both Wang Fatty and me. "Change shifts?" Wang Fatty asked me in a trembling voice what that meant. "Who are they?" I shook my head. How would I know? Just then, the original female voice sounded again, this time with a hint of impatience. "Why aren't you coming down yet? Hurry up, we need to go up." Wang Fatty's legs went soft. He almost sat on the floor. A sudden thought struck me. Plucking up my courage, I shouted at the wall, "We can't go down. This is the elevator wall." After a few seconds of silence, the girl said faintly, "This is an elevator. We also came up by elevator." No sooner had she spoken, the elevator door slammed shut with a bang and plummeted rapidly. This time, Wang Fatty and I scrambled out of the first floor. The old security guard on duty was still there, looking at our distraught appearance. He sighed. He took out a string of prayer beads from the drawer and handed them to me. "Young men, you've encountered them too?" I was stunned. "Grandpa, you wouldn't happen to have worked in this building for 20 years, would you? You must have seen everything." His cloudy eyes looked in the direction of the elevator. "This building isn't clean, especially those who work overtime during the Zisher period, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Their yang energy is weak. They are easily targeted by them." "Who are they?" I asked eagerly. The old man shook his head. He pushed the prayer beads into my hand. "Don't ask. It won't do you any good. Try not to leave so late in the future. If you absolutely have to leave, take this with you. And remember, If they say anything to you again, absolutely do not respond. Wang Fadi and I both fell ill. A persistent high fever. Our colleagues at the company just assumed we had the flu. No one took it seriously. After recovering from our illness, Wang Fadi resolutely resigned. He said money can be earned again, but you only live once. I didn't leave. It wasn't because I was brave, but because I was poor. Mortgage and car loans weighed me down. I couldn't afford to be reckless. More importantly, the mention of shift changes was like a Pandora's box. I desperately wanted to see what was hidden inside. Who were they? Why were they changing shifts? Why? The security guard's words enlightened me. This building had a history, a secret. I began investigating the past of Splendor Tower. Splendor Tower was renovated and rebuilt in the late 1990s. But its predecessor was an annex building built in the 1970s, belonging to the Red Flag Textile Factory. It mainly served as a collective dormitory for female workers. I searched online for everything about the Red Flag Textile Factory. Old news, local gazetteer forums, and old posts provided fragmented information. But they all pointed to one thing. On a winter night in 1983, a massive fire broke out in the textile factory dormitory. I found a photocopy of a report from that time. The headline was shocking. Red Flag Textile Factory Dormitory engulfed in late-night fire. Over 10 female workers perish in blaze. The report was very vague. It stated the fire was caused by someone engaging in dangerous activities. But it mentioned one detail. Many of the victims were found at the stairwell on the top floor. They seemed to have been trying to escape, but couldn't get out. The report concluded with a sentence stating that, for safety reasons, the relevant departments decided to permanently seal off the most severely damaged top floor and deal with it. The top floor. My heart began to race. Buildings of that era usually didn't shy away from the number 13. If that dormitory building had 13 floors, then the sealed-off top floor would be the 13th floor. I needed proof. I needed to know the truth about that fire. I set my sights on the municipal archives. I took a few days of annual leave and spent every day at the archives. Under the guise of writing a thesis on local industrial history, I applied to access old archives from the 1970s and 80s. The process was tedious and difficult. Many documents were yellowed and damaged. Finally, on the third day, from a pile of inconspicuous fire safety rectification reports, among the attachments, I unearthed an internal investigation report on the 11.23 massive fire at the Red Flag Textile Factory. This report was much more detailed than the news articles, and far more brutal. The report showed that, not over 10 but 16 female workers died that night. They were all young women around 20 years old, from surrounding rural areas. They worked day and night in 3 shifts at the textile factory. The fire indeed started due to dangerous activities, but the fatal reason sent shivers down my spine. To facilitate management, to prevent female workers from going out secretly at night, and for security against theft, the dormitory management used a large lock to lock the only emergency exit to the rooftop from the outside, and that exit was on the 13th floor. The fire started on the lower floors. Thick smoke quickly filled the entire stairwell. The young women desperately ran upwards, hoping to escape from the rooftop, but that locked door became their dead end. The investigation report included a few blurry black and white photos. One of them was that charred iron door. The door was covered with desperate, crisscrossing claw marks, identical to the scratches I saw on the wall outside the elevator. At the end of the report were signatures and directives from several leaders. The directives basically stated to learn from the lesson, strengthen management, do a good job of appeasing the families, and prevent the news from spreading and affecting production. Then came the plan for the permanent sealing of the 13th floor. They used rebar and concrete to encase the entire 13th floor along with that door, that section of the stairwell, and the final despair of those 16 young women, all together inside. Officially, for external communication, this building only had 12 floors. After Splendor Tower was built, this narrative has been maintained to this day. They thought cement could erase a piece of history and cover up a crime. They were wrong. I held the copied report. My hands were trembling violently. I finally understood. The elevator malfunctions were not malfunctions. They were the 16 wronged souls trapped in darkness for decades. Their resentment was tearing at this space, trying to open that sealed exit. Their cries, their scratching sounds, were a reenactment of the fire scene from back then. They were erased both physically and officially. They could not rest in peace. Splendor Tower sees people coming and going every day. I'm not the only one who works overtime. Why was I the only one chosen? I began to examine my own life. I clock in at 9 a.m. every morning, and leave work at 11 p.m., sometimes even later. I eat the cheapest takeout, drink the bitterest coffee. All my energy is tied to that small workstation, for endless projects, for meager wages and so-called blessings, burning away my life. My workstation is in the corner by the window on the 11th floor. When I started working, admin said that spot had good feng shui and was quiet. Now that I think about it, that might have been the original site of a room in the dormitory building back then. I work long hours, have irregular meals, and suffer from severe sleep deprivation. In the words of the security guard, I am physically and mentally exhausted. My life force is weak. More importantly, in my current state, I am one of them. They were young female workers in the 70s and 80s, exploited during the primitive accumulation of capital. They exhausted their youth beside roaring machines during the day, and were locked in dangerous dormitories at night. Ultimately, they died in a man-made disaster that was covered up. And I am a 21st century, modern social animal, Serchu, alienated by overtime culture and consumerism in the information age. Every day, I'm glued to my computer, trading my health for KPIs. Both my mind and body are on the verge of collapse. We are all vulnerable groups swept along by the tide of the times. We are exploited, consumed, unseen, expendable cogs. My exhaustion, my despair, my weakened life force formed a special frequency. It resonated with their resentment. They could sense me. They chose me. Just when I thought I had figured everything out, I received an unfamiliar phone call. "Is this Mr. Lin?" The voice on the other end was very polite. "My surname is Zhang. I'm from the Property Management Engineering Department of Splendor Tower. I heard you recently reported an issue with the elevator. We'd like to speak with you to understand the situation." My heart skipped a beat. They're here. We met at the coffee shop downstairs from the company building. Manager Zhang was a middle-aged man in his 40s, wearing gold-rimmed glasses. He looked very shrewd. Beside him was a young man in a repair worker's uniform. "Mr. Lin, we take your feedback very seriously," Manager Zhang said directly. "We conducted a comprehensive inspection of the 2 elevators you mentioned, but all mechanical and electronic components showed normal operation." "Impossible," I immediately retorted. "It definitely stopped on the 13th floor." Manager Zhang smiled, a hint of imperceptible disdain in his smile. "Mr. Lin, this building doesn't have a 13th floor. That's how it's set in the design blueprints. Perhaps you've been working too hard recently and misread it." I stared into his eyes, knowing that arguing with him about this was useless. I changed my approach. "Manager Zhang, I've done some research. The predecessor of this building was the Red Flag Textile Factory dormitory. I heard there was a fire there before." Manager Zhang's hand, which was raising his coffee cup, paused imperceptibly. The smile vanished from his face, replaced by a professional wariness. "Mr. Lin, those are old stories. They have no bearing on our current building management. We are only here today to resolve the elevator malfunction issue." He deliberately emphasized the words, "elevator malfunction," as if to remind me of something, what to say and what not to say. Since the inspection found no problems, I said coldly, "Then I won't trouble you any further." "All right." Manager Zhang stood up and handed me a business card. "If the elevator malfunctions again, you can call this number anytime. We have someone responding 24 hours a day. Oh, and by the way," he walked to the door, then turned back, giving me a meaningful look. "Mr. Lin, young people should still pay more attention to rest. Don't overthink things. Knowing some things won't do you any good." He was warning me. They knew everything. They not only knew about the existence of the 13th floor, but also what had happened there. Like those people back then, they chose to cover it up. And I, this inconvenient investigator, it had already caught their attention. Manager Zhang's warning was like a bucket of cold water, and it sobered me up. I realized that behind this incident, there weren't just vengeful spirits, but living people too. A group of people who wanted this secret to be buried forever in concrete. I learned from my mysterious contact and encrypted all the copied investigation reports and data. I backed up several copies and stored them on different cloud drives. I even wrote a timed email addressed to the tip-off mailboxes of several well-known media outlets. If I didn't log into my email for 72 hours, the email would automatically be sent. I didn't know if it would work, but it was the only way I could think of to protect myself. I no longer dared to take the elevator. I climbed the stairs to and from work every day. My colleagues' gazes at me became more and more like they were looking at a monster. I thought as long as I stayed away from the elevator, everything would be fine. I was wrong again. That night, I worked overtime until midnight again. I was the only one left on the entire floor. I packed my things, ready to take the stairs. Just as I stood up, the computer screen at my workstation suddenly lit up on its own. It wasn't a boot screen, but on a completely black screen, several white characters slowly appeared. "We can't go down." I was scared out of my wits. My first reaction was to pull the power cord, but it was useless. The words were etched onto the screen like a brand. Immediately after, all the computers in the office, dozens of monitors, all lit up simultaneously. They all displayed the same sentence: "We can't go down." Then all the screens began to flicker wildly. The office lights also flickered erratically. I heard that familiar, widespread sound of women crying. It wasn't coming from the elevator, but from all directions. From the ceiling, from the walls, from the floor. The entire 11th floor seemed to have turned into a living hell. I understood. Their range of activity wasn't limited to that elevator. As long as they were in this building, as long as it was midnight, the hour of Z, their resentment could permeate every corner, especially this corner where I was. I had to run. I scrambled and crawled towards the stairwell. Behind me, dozens of computers. The words on their screens changed to new content. "Help us. Take us down. It's time for a shift change." I ran all the way to the first floor in one breath. The security guard, an old man, just shook his head when he saw me. He didn't ask anything. I didn't dare go home. I sat in a 24-hour convenience store all night. After dawn, I went straight back to the company and handed in my resignation. My supervisor made a few token attempts to persuade me to stay, and then approved it. In this era, programmer leaving was as insignificant as pulling out a single hair. I thought that by resigning and leaving that building, everything would be over. However, as I was packing my things, leaving the glorious building for the last time, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered the phone as if compelled. There was a lot of static on the other end, mixed with faint sounds of crying. Then, that young female voice I knew so well, faintly spoke. "Where are you going?" I was so scared I almost threw my phone. "You can't escape," she said softly, as if stating a fact. "We're sticking with you. What exactly do you want?" I practically screamed. "We don't want anything," she said. "We just want to get off work." "Get off work? What do you mean? We never finished our shift back then. That fire trapped us there forever. Every day, we relive the moment of our death, over and over again." Her voice carried an endless weariness. "We're so tired. We want to go down, to get out of that sealed-off hell, and return to the real world." My mind raced. Finally, all the clues connected. "Shift change," I murmured to myself. "The shift change you're talking about isn't about me going up. It's about you wanting to come down." "Yes," she replied, "but we're trapped. We can't get out. We need a passage that can connect our space with your world." She said, "You are just like us. You carry the same scent as us. Your body is the best channel." I instantly understood the terrifying meaning of her words. They wanted to come into this world through me. "You want to possess me?" My voice was trembling. "Not possession, it's a shift change," she corrected. "You come up and stay here for us. We'll go down and live outside for you. It's fair, isn't it?" I was plunged into an icy abyss. This was the true meaning of a shift change. It wasn't simple harassment. It wasn't revenge. It was a swap. They wanted to use my body to escape that forgotten hell, and I would take their place, forever trapped on that non-existent 13th floor, feeling that great fire day after day, until my soul, like theirs, was filled with resentment. "It's time to go down." On the other end of the phone, countless female voices began to sing in unison. "Come down quickly. Give us your body." I abruptly hung up the phone and turned it off. I pulled out the SIM card and threw it into a roadside trash can. I hailed a taxi and incessantly urged the driver to go faster. The further away from that damned glorious building, the better. I fled. I fled back to my hometown, a small city hundreds of kilometers away. I changed all my contact information and cut off all ties with my past. I thought I was safe, but they were right. I couldn't escape. The first week back in my hometown, everything was calm. I greedily savored the peace of being away from the big city, trying to convince myself that it had all just been a nightmare. Until midnight on the 7th night. I was fast asleep when I was suddenly awakened by a familiar tremor. It wasn't an earthquake. My bed was shaking. The feeling was exactly the same as being in the elevator. I opened my eyes. The room was pitch black, but I could hear scratching sounds. Crying sounds came from under my bed, from inside the wardrobe, from outside the window. The entire room transformed into the elevator car. I huddled under the covers, my body stiff with fear, I knew they had come. They had followed me here. Something cold touched my ankle. I sharply pulled back my foot and screamed as I rolled off the bed. In the darkness, I saw a blurry figure standing by my bed. No, not one. There were many. Their figures overlapped, indistinct, but I could feel them all watching me. "We found you," the familiar female voice whispered in my ear. "Why are you haunting me?" I cried out, breaking down. I didn't do what happened back then. I wasn't the one who locked the door, nor was I the one who covered up the truth. If you want revenge, you should go find those people. She seemed to laugh slightly. The laughter was full of sorrow. Who can we seek revenge on? The auntie who managed the dorms back then died of illness long ago. The factory leaders, some retired, some transferred away. The developer who built this building is now an influential figure in the city. We are ghosts, but even ghosts can't contend with living devils. Her words were like an awl, piercing my heart. Yes, who could they find? 40 years had passed. Things had changed, people were gone. Those who should be held responsible were either no longer alive, or living perfectly well, protected by power and money. "We can't get revenge," she continued. "We just want to rest in peace. But that place is sealed off. Our souls are locked inside. Our only way out is a shift change." Why me? I was still making a final struggle. You now and us back then. Those who exploit you, and those who caused our deaths back then. History merely changed its clothes, and is constantly repeating itself. Her voice seemed to carry a magic, making illusions appear before my eyes. I saw the glorious building, the bright office, and the dimly lit textile workshop I'd seen in the documents from my memory. That dim textile workshop, overlapping. I saw my supervisor promising the moon in meetings, saying that 996 was a blessing. It was the exact same expression as that factory leader from back then, shouting at the mobilization meeting about dedicating youth to production. I saw my own bloodshot eyes, red from staying up late in front of the computer for KPIs, and with those female workers beside the rapidly operating machines, my exhausted face gradually merged with theirs. I saw myself, a new victim tied to the assembly line of modern society. I finally understood completely. This wasn't a simple supernatural event. This was a historical tragedy that had been covered up, reflected and avenged in modern society. Their resentment wasn't directed at any specific person, but at the exploitation itself. They chose me because I was the most like them. I was the contemporary projection of their tragic fate. Their shift change was both self-preservation and a warning, a desperate cry that transcended time and space. "See, you understand now," the girl said faintly. "You are no different from us. So come down, give us your body, and let us see what the world outside has become in these past 40 years. And you, come up and remember that fire for us. Remember that locked door. Remember how we died. That's not fair. Is it fair?" she retorted. "Was it fair when we were locked inside and burned to death back then? Was it fair when our deaths were covered up by a report and a concrete wall? When has this world ever been fair to people like us?" I was speechless. I felt all the strength drained from my body. My will to resist crumbled at that moment. They were right. It was useless no matter where I fled, because what I couldn't escape was myself. My identity as the exploited, that scent of extreme exploitation. Weary and desperate on me. As long as I lived like this, I would forever be their beacon in the human world. In the darkness, those figures began to approach me. My story ends here. You might ask what happened to me in the end, if I was switched shifts. I don't know how to answer. After that night, I fell seriously ill. By the time I regained consciousness, a month had already passed. I was lying in a hospital in my hometown. My parents said I had suffered a mental breakdown due to prolonged work stress. I had lost dozens of pounds, and my eyes held a weariness unsuited for my age. I never saw them again, nor did I hear those voices again. Glorious building, 13th floor, fire, vengeful spirits. It all felt like a dream that was too real. I tried to live a normal life. I found a relaxed job, 9 to 5, absolutely no overtime. I started exercising, learning to take care of myself. Sometimes late at night, I'd look in the mirror and feel that the person in the mirror was a stranger. His eyes, his smile, carried a weariness I couldn't understand. I would unconsciously hum some very old folk songs, tunes I had never heard before. Sometimes, I would subconsciously straighten my collar, smoothing out wrinkles on a skirt, but I was clearly wearing a t-shirt. It seemed as if my life had gained some habits and memory fragments that didn't belong to me. I didn't tell anyone about these changes. A few months ago, I heard from an old colleague. that something had happened at the Glorious Building. It wasn't a supernatural event, but a real-life accident. Shortly after I left my job, the company I used to work for, due to long-term and severe overtime issues, caused a young girl who had just joined not long ago to die suddenly at her workstation. This incident caused a huge stir. The media reported on it extensively. The girl's parents took her overtime records and medical reports and sued the company. Under public pressure, the relevant authorities began to investigate, looking into the company's employment practices and the building's fire safety. Then, someone, I don't know who, exposed the fire that had been covered up 40 years ago. That timed email I had sent, I don't know if it played a role, but I knew the truth of that year was brought to light again in a way no one could have imagined. Red Flag Textile Factory Collective Dormitory, 13th floor, 16 female workers burned to death. The locked fire escape, the top floor sealed with concrete. All the evil was exposed to the light. It was said that government departments ordered a thorough investigation. The Glorious Building was shut down for rectification. High-ranking officials of the developer were taken in for questioning. Online, public sentiment was furious. Everyone was demanding to know who was responsible back then and who the current regulators were. Who should be held accountable for this justice delayed by 40 years? The day I saw the news, I was mopping the floor at home. When I heard the words Glorious Building on TV, the mop in my hand clattered to the floor. I stared blankly at the TV screen, watching the angry crowds, watching the leaders surrounded by camera flashes. Tears streamed down my face without me realizing it. Those weren't my tears. There was no sadness in those tears, only a sense of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. The familiar female voice echoed in my mind again. But this time, her voice was no longer filled with resentment, but carried a hint of relieved laughter. See, it's dawn. Our shift is finally over. Thank you. The voice gradually faded away. I stood in the center of the living room, motionless for a very long time. Outside the window, the sun shone brightly. I don't know what exactly happened that night. Was it that, at the last moment, I used my remaining will to persuade them, to shift their target of revenge from me, an innocent fellow sufferer, to the root cause of all this tragedy? Or perhaps their so-called shift change was never about occupying my body from the start? They just needed a channel, a medium, a megaphone that could transmit their resentment and despair to this numb world. They chose me not to destroy me, but to use me, to complete this 40-year delayed, ultimate revenge against capital evil and a history that had been ignored. I don't know the answer. Perhaps there will never be an answer. I only know that from that day on, I never woke up startled at midnight again. My name is Lynn Bugging, an ordinary programmer, a former corporate slave. I survived. And those 16 girls, their story can finally be heard by everyone. I think this might be the best ending.